Welcome back, everybody, and thanks for joining us again for another awesome episode with co-founder of mBraining, Grant Soosalu. And I'm your host, Bill.
Oh yes. Thank you, young Bill, for hosting these processes, and we are having fun with them.
We are.
So I hope you guys are enjoying it too, because I guess if you're not, that's a shame, but we are. In the spirit of mBit though, we hope you are.
Yeah, we are. We hope you are. We believe that the stuff that we're sharing is lighthearted and serious at the same time, offers a lot of value, a lot of new insights, hopefully, and as a result, there'll be something in it for everybody. I've got a feeling, Grant.
Yeah.
And
if nothing else, it offers a chance to hear the same. Even if they've heard this information, hear it in another way.
Yeah.
We're coming from the heart in a way that will hopefully add a level of integration. So even if there's not one new distinction you take away, you will have gotten a deeper level of integration in this.
That's right.
And by the way, for the neuro-linguists in the room, start tracking the neuro-linguistics of how we're expressing things, because there's layers within layers within layers.
And layers within layers within layers, and chapters within chapters within chapters.
Yeah, absolutely.
And information, like I said in the last episode, that I've considered, but on a superficial level. So, but not in a bad way, but in the concept initially, some of the concepts in here initially take a little bit of time to digest, take a little bit of time to start bringing them
ontologically into your life, to change your ways of being, feeling and doing in them.
Yes.
Absolutely.
So that is what I'm getting that's what I'm really getting out of mBraining, as well as all the other stuff that I've already described and we talked about in the previous episodes. And one of the things I loved about mBraining was from the very beginning was getting to wisdom. And this situation that I found myself during the coaching certification that I was a part of, that I was participating in as a learner, where even with coaches, as we were coaching each other and learning from each other during the coach certification, that hadn't had a lot of mBraining experience. We're talking about 3 or 4 days.
Yeah, that's right.
I was, and they were facilitating processes for the client that were arriving at wisdom in decision making within a half an hour, 45-minute session that you gave us to practice, so you guys can determine our competencies when certification time came.
Yep.
And I thought wisdom, Grant, was something you had to get old and grey and wrinkly to acquire and achieve.
I must be getting there, because I'm getting grey and a little bit wrinkly in the love lines, and so this is making me more wise. No, maybe not. Exactly. I think a lot of people do that, Bill. They conflate age with wisdom. They make a complex equivalent on that. And I've always said, you know what? Some of the wisest people I've known have been incredibly young people who are in touch, who've had a lot of life experience. Because I don't think it's age which gives you wisdom. I think it's experience gives you the basis if you orient yourself, approach yourself to this experience in the right way. So you have somebody who's lived 60 years of doing exactly the same life with no adventurousness whatsoever, no creativity, not getting outside some very safe little boundary walls that they've built around themselves. And at 60 they probably had less life experience than somebody, say, who's a 16-year-old street kid who's lived an incredible level of life experience. And now life experience alone won't give you wisdom.
No.
So there you go. So let's deconstruct wisdom, because wisdom is a normalization, as if it's a thing. It's a process of wisdoming, of wising. So what's the structure of that? How do people go about when they produce a wise decision? First of all, we have to say, so what is a wise decision? When you're deciding, how do you know whether something's wise or not? And that's where all the research on wisdom, there's a lot of research on wisdom, everything going back from Plato and Aristotle, moving forward to scientific studies on the structure of wisdom. And wisdom is wisdom after the fact. You cannot tell, in complex adaptive systems, you cannot tell whether or not the action you're going to take will be the wisest action, the absolute wisest action. you can examine the ecology of the system and attempt to do the most ecological change, but there'll be emergence in complex adaptive systems.
Right.
So, in fact, wisdom is usually wisdom after the fact. As you look back and go, well, yes. Now, define what's a wise decision. That which produces the most generative impact in the system. There's the most ecological change for the system in a generative way, is my definition for wisdom. So, the wisdoming process is, there's no absolute wisdom unless you're God, and understand the full universe in all its myriad interacting, quantum mechanical, of which there's quantum indeterminacy, etc. There, in a non-deterministic world, there is no way any one organism can ever have absolute wisdom. Yeah. But there's relative wisdom.
Right.
There's something is wiser than it was before.
Right.
So when you look at the structure of decision making and deciding on things, in order to take action that would be wiser than if you didn't consider certain things. So if you look at something like the work of Gregory Bateson, systems theorist, cyberneticist, etc., anthropologist, Gregory said that minimum for wisdom, you need multiple distinctions, and the minimum number of multiple distinctions that you needed for wisdom was 3. If you only got one distinction, there's no choice whatsoever in the system. It's not likely to be the wisest choice, because you've only got one, you're stuck.
Mm-hmm.
If you've got 2, well, you've got one more degree of freedom to choose with, but now you've kind of got a binary thing where if you choose this one, you miss out on this, if you choose this, you miss out on this, and it's an either or, and most people end up being split, going on the one hand and on the other hand, and they never end up making a decision, and you can never be sure which one. So if you get multiple distinctions, the minimum you need to be able to make multiple distinctions is 3, because now you can do this one against this one, this one against this one, this one's against this one. You start to get multiple choices. You can start to, from a requisite variety perspective, you've got more choice, therefore more control in the system. But you still need requisite knowledge. You still need to know, in order for requisite control, you need cybernetics theory, systems theory, control theory says that for requisite control, there's control in the system that will produce, in our definition of wisdom, the most ecological choice. Requisite control needs 2 things: requisite variety, that is variety in choices. You need more variety in the system. Another way of thinking about that is, say, flexibility in your choices. And you need requisite knowing, because you need to know which is, of the requisite variety, which choice in the requisite variety is the most useful one. So you need to increase your levels of knowing, and you need to increase your choice by getting multiple distinctions. In the human system, given we know that we have 3 intelligences, 3 brains, at minimum, and a highly intelligent adaptive control system that is communication and control between your nervous system, then at minimum you need to check in at 3 levels: head, heart and gut, when you're making a decision.
Right.
That gives you the 3, minimum 3. So in other words, you will make your own intuitively wiser decision when you bring to the game of deciding in your life what your head thinks through its prime functions of logic, cognitive perception, making meaning, intellectual meaning. From the heart, bringing values, emotions, and how you connect with others, relational affect. And at a gut level, all the stuff around boundary detection, protection, around core identity, and around motility. How you're going to take action or not take action, what you need to do or not do in this situation, and how it relates to you as a core identity, whether it's you or not you, self and not self, at a very visceral level. So across these 3 domains of head, heart and gut, you're now bringing multiple distinctions to your decision making. And within that, from an autonomic balance point, because you don't make your best decisions when you're stressed or depressed. And there's a huge amount of research that I've come across over the last 12 months in preparing for the mBit leadership decision making training, where I've looked at the work they've done when people are stressed or depressed, including when they're lack of sleep, tired, etc. And you would have seen some of the papers I posted up on the mBit private Facebook pages, that mBit groups that mBit coaches and trainers get access to. I keep posting all the latest research findings, etc., that I come across of new studies on this. And so when people are stressed, so sympathetic dominant, or depressed, parasympathetic overdominant, they do not make their most effective, productive, wisest decisions. And that's measurable in dollar terms in organisations, it's trackable in labs when people are making intuitive decision-making tasks, etc. within complex environments, what you need to do is be coming from an autonomically balanced place and getting multiple distinctions. That will allow you to emerge wisdom. And it's emergent.
I was just about to ask
Absolutely.
about
Yeah,
that.
it's
So
it's emergent because you can't go, I will make the wise decision.
Right.
All you can do is bring the intuitive decidings, knowledge together to allow this complex adaptive system to emerge a decision that will be wiser than if you didn't do all of that.
Right.
And then it plays out and you get to look back in hindsight and go, wow, I'm really happy with that decision. Now, if anyone listening to this wants to just track for in their own life, think back to times when you made a decision that in the fullness of time, you're really happy. It was a decision that really improved your life, that brought your human spirit alive. As you look back, you went, that was a core part of me, and I'm glad I made that decision that way. My life has been better since for that. If you look at that decision and track back when you were making it, did your head, heart and gut all have a part to play in it? Were you coming from a balanced mode when you made that decision? And was the whole of you aligned on it? And when we do this modelling work, people who have made incredibly good decisions, they always say, I haven't come across an example yet where someone said, actually no, I made this really wise decision, but my heart was saying, nah, not interested, nah, don't want to be part of that. But on the flip side, think of a time when you made a decision when it didn't work out. When in the fullness of time, even though when you made the decision you thought it was going to be a good one, the fullness of time turned out to not be wise at all. And it was a pretty dumb decision that impacted your life in a negative way. And look back, and you'll invariably find, and that's the work that Marv and I did, that when we looked at modelling work of people who have made ineffective decisions, there was always a NIC, a neural integrative constraint. There was one brain not being used, one brain not being listened to, prime functions that weren't in play, etc. So when people didn't bring these multiple distinctions, they didn't bring the minimum of 3 brains to the whole thing, they didn't come from an aligned place, they were operating out of stress. The research work on intuition is that you've got to and we talk about this in the 2-day workshop, you've got to understand your eyes. The eyes there is a difference between, there's 3 of them, I'll tell you 2 now, and if you want a 3rd one, come to the course. So there's a difference between instinct and intuition. They're not the same thing.
No.
And when instinct kicks in is when you are in an autonomically unbalanced state. That's when you get these instinctual behaviours that are hardwired. Yeah, that's an insight, right?
Yeah.
And it makes sense. You're going to kick into instinctual fight and flight, etc., or feeding, fornicating behaviours when you're stressed or depressed. That's not intuition.
No.
You get a very different class of information coming out of these neural networks when they're in coherence versus when they're out of coherence. So this is important. Intuition and the intuitive voice is not the same as the voice that's screaming, going, run away, run away, run away.
No.
That's not, that is not intuition. That's instinctual drive because you have been kicked into fight or flight.
Yes.
Yep. So that's an important distinction. And there's a third one, which if you want to learn it, come to the workshop. So I won't be running the workshop, but my beautiful trainers, in the mBit community, who are doing great stuff in their own independent rights, will be the ones that you'll go to their workshops.
Yeah, we hope to see you there.
Absolutely. No, we'll see you there. Because you do want to make a difference in the way you lead the world, right? Yeah. Anyway, lighthearted.
So that's really great, actually. Really great to hear that wisdom is emergent.
Yeah. It takes the pressure off too, because you have to go, I've got to do, it's like, no,
just the wisest decision, etc.
Just come from the highest expressing of you in autonomic balance and harness that intuitive intelligence to align around what emerges. And what you'll see is what emerges is something you couldn't have predicted, didn't come from the same way of being that you were in before you aligned. Because most people don't live as a way of being and doing and feeling from highest expressing.
No.
Unless they've been to evolve and they start living every moment from the minute they wake up, doing a bit of balanced breathing before they get out of bed and asking themselves, what's the most compassionate, creative and courageous me that I could do today? And then every decision, micro and macro, they build the neural circuits through neuroplasticity of asking themselves, what's the most compassionate, creative and courageous me that I could do in this decision. And as you do that, it builds an unconscious competency to an unconscious mastery. You start going through life orienting yourself from the minute you hop in a taxi to the minute you're buying a coffee to every phone call. You start coming from, without even having to think about it, from heart first to then head to gut, compassion, creativity, courage, bringing your neural circuits alive, bringing the human spirit alive. And what emerges out of that is the wisest way of doing yourself, that you don't have to go, oh, I've got to be wise, better get some grey hairs in my beard and a few more wrinkles. You don't need to go and put the silly putty on to make the wrinkles. You just need to live from the highest expressing of you.
Yeah.
And of course, as we talked about in the last talk, the highest expressing of you is a learning. It's a series of competencies. It's a lifetime journey. Yeah. It's not a destination. It's, if you're alive, then you're still learning about what's the most compassionate, creative, courageous you. These are synergistic ways of being and doing that allow you to move forth in the world and make a damn difference.
Yeah.
In ways that self-compassion you'll be proud of. Yeah. That the people who love you will go, oh, we love loving you because you make a difference to our lives.
Yeah, yeah.
What more do you want in life, really?
Yeah, you want to make a difference. I definitely want to make a difference. What I've noticed that is different about me in decision making today, and my wife's, because my wife's been on a lot of this journey, the mBraining journey with me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is that
the beautiful Christine?
Yeah, the beautiful, lovely Christine, who is just amazingly supportive and just does compassion in an amazing way, just intuitively.
Yes.
Way before I even knew what compassion meant, right?
And aren't we glad that we've got these beautiful exemplars in our life that we can model off?
Yes.
We both, you and I, both are blessed.
We so are. If I was, just to go really quickly onto a personal part of my life, if I was with somebody like me in the past, I would have kicked that bum out of the door ages ago.
That's a MBit technical term, right? Out the bum out the door, right?
Yeah, right.
The distal end of your gut brain out the
That's
door.
Right.
Core identity out the door. Yeah.
So Christine and I, now when we make really important decisions, so in the past when we were very early on married, we used to make decisions and they never felt quite right. There was always a lot of uncertainty around them. Whereas now when we make really serious or important decisions, especially around finances...
Whether to have a coffee or a tea, yeah.
Yeah, no, not that.
Buy a house, for example.
Yep.
Yeah.
The questions that we ask each other are, what does your head feel about that? Let's have a listen to what your heart's got to say, and let's now see what your gut's got to say. And often, they've all got something similar to say, but if one of them's abreacting, for example, the gut, it's okay, so what do you need to allow us to make the decision that we want to make and feel comfortable about it, knowing that it's the right decision? And the example of buying a house, it's okay that the price cannot exceed X amount. Okay, so ask the gut, if we're happy to purchase a house that does not exceed a particular value, well then is that the right decision to buy the house? If it's the one we love, it's got the right amount of bedrooms, etc.
Yeah. And the gut said?
The gut said yes.
Go for it.
So then when you
you did.
So when you go to auction and you go to make a purchase,
comfortable, right?
Yeah, there's
easy
no
flow.
Stress about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you just turn up and things seem to happen and go your way.
Yeah, yeah, and therefore also you're not going to get kicked into, if you get stressed in an auction situation, you end up, this is what often happens, and that's why auctions are designed that way, to put people, that's why they do it fast and loud and quick with social competition, etc. It pushes people into stress mode, and then they make decisions that are not wise. They go off instincts because they start going, but that's mine, core identity with it, and they end up paying more money, and in the end they buy something that actually is beyond their price range, or something's real. They have buyer's remorse, but they're locked into a contract, or they got their 24 hours or whatever of, and a lot of this now happens, and houses then end up going back on the market because the auction forced the buyer into a place they didn't want to go to. Yeah. If you use these sorts of processes of bringing the wisdom into your own ways of being and doing, whether it's buying a house, whether it's literally, should I have that coffee or the herbal tea, whatever, for small decisions to large decisions, if you came from the highest expressing of you in a balanced mode, you're going to produce wiser decisions that feel great, that in the end make your life flow so much easier. Yeah. And when you look at the people whose lives are incredible, whether it's Sir Richard Branson, or just someone that you know in your own street who has got their, so to speak, shit together, mBit, scatological marking, technical term, then you'll go look at the way they live their life. If they're living in flow and everything's going, then already by definition, everything's in balance, so they're coming from an autonomic mode that allows for balance, which is coherence. And they're using the intelligence of their full, incredible, beautiful brains, their beautiful heart brain, their beautiful gut brain, in the right sequence, with the right prime functions, and it's all integrative, their life flows.
Wisdom emerges.
Wisdom emerges. And you look at them and go, they appear to have a lot of wisdom.
Yeah.
They don't wander around going, I'm so wise,
No.
I'm so wise, because if they did that, would be a head trip,
Yeah.
and that would be them trying to force something, like force wisdom, when in fact wisdom is emergent.
And often when we go to people to seek their advice, who we consider wise, they never said they're wise, come to me for advice.
But no, and if they do, beware, run away from these people. And it's, as Dr. Albert Ellis, the developer of what's now called cognitive behavioural therapy, but was originally called REBT, rational emotive behavioural therapy, and old Al, as my friend David and I lovingly call Al, and we spoke to Al in Avoiding the Enemy's Happiness. We have these notes from the fields. At the end of each chapter, we went and interviewed different exemplars, people who we thought were real experts in the field, not in theoretical perspective, but and one of the people that we interviewed, Dave interviewed, was Albert Ellis. And just before he ended up in hospital and died, which is such a sad loss to the world. He was such an incredible guy. But Al had a beautiful way of telling it like it is, which I'd like to model off. And so he used to call it, beware of people doing wisdom shitting. Now, I love the concept. Wisdom, they're saying they know it.
Yeah.
Shitting, they're scatological marking the boundaries. They're going to wisdom shit you. And so a lot of these people, a lot of personal development gurus, a lot of these, big experts sit up on these high chairs. Oops, get off the high chair. But they sit there and they want to hand down their wisdom to you, and they put themselves as if they are wise, and they're going to hand you. And he called that wisdom shitting. They're wisdom shitting down onto people, giving them the excrement comes out of the. The thing about oats. The ones that have already gone through the horse are a lot cheaper, right? And so I think about that with the wisdom shitting, right? I think the point is that wisdom is emergent. No one can say they've got wisdom. Right. Wisdom's in hindsight. All you can do or say that you're doing is saying that you're attempting to live from highest expressing.
Right.
It's a journey, not a destination. No one's perfect at it. We're all fallible human beings, and systems can make mistakes, and it's part of learning, hopefully. And would increase your requisite knowing as you learn, do this, didn't work.
Try something else.
Try anything else. There's a better chance than something that didn't work.
Yeah.
So I really do think that it's not about aiming for wisdom. That's why on the roadmap there's no explicit step in the mBit coaching process for wisdom. Wisdoming emerges. All you've got to do in life, in coaching, in decision making, is just to come from compassion, creativity and courage in autonomic balance mode with communication and integration. Align, honour all the intelligence of these brains and what they want. If the gut wants to be safe and wants to set boundaries, that's its role. That's what it evolved to do. Honour that. So if you do that, then I think what you'll see is that life starts to get easier and better. And at the end of the day, with 7.2 billion on the way to 11 billion humans, I think we want to start living from some emergent wisdom where if we all lived from highest expressing, if every human being on the planet, other than sociopaths, started coming from compassion, creativity and courage in that order, then for a start we wouldn't allow the sociopaths to be overrepresented in our leadership positions, because from a heart perspective we would know wise compassion means don't put somebody who's disconnected because they don't have the neural circuitry to connect at a heart level and a gut level. You don't want a head on two legs. A head on two legs is dangerous. A man with a vision is a dangerous animal. So I think there's ways in which wisdom would emerge if we just get enough, a tipping point of humans who recognise that there is neuroscience to back up these three incredible virtues of the highest expressings of compassion, creativity and courage. There is something about those three ways of being and doing. They have to be more than feeling states. If you come from that, new things happen. Emergent things happen. There's greater wisdoming on the planet, and that wisdoming puts us. Now, here's a little extra, bit of mBit magic. As Marvin used to call it, secret mBit stuff. So, one of the ways in which we evolved, the models in mBraining, in mBit, was we recognise wisdom's relative. Wisdoming is relative. So we wanted to optimise the chance that people could increase their level of requisite knowing so that they could increase their absolute levels of wisdoming. And wisdoming is always relative, but we want that to slowly but surely move up in levels of ecological complexity. So if you look at something like the spiral dynamics model, the Graves model of values and how people shift from station to station, colour to colour, level to level, whichever way you've learnt it or you want to talk about it. But there is a sense in which as you move up, and I'm going to say up, the spiral of human valuings, that the next level up, each level up, has a level of increased ecological complexity. It can handle higher levels of complexity.
Right.
And this is a representation of, if you can handle higher levels of ecological complexity in your thinking and your doing, and your being, then you actually can live with more absolute wisdoming relative to what you were doing before.
Mm-hmm.
So to optimise people to be able to take on learnings at a head, heart and gut level, the place that people can do their best learnings from, most integrative, increased neuroplasticity, etc., is from those adaptive places. When you're stressed or depressed, you don't do your best learning. It doesn't matter which learning theory you want to look at or what you see in the lab, mood-dependent memory, work on that. If you want to look at accelerated learning methodologies, etc., it's all about putting people into largo-paced, putting them into a way in which you're optimising sorts of brainwave patterns at the head brain level, bringing left and right hemisphere, what's happening in the heart, hooking through values. And when people are stressed and depressed, they downregulate. And downregulates learning. So if you want people to increase their learnings from their experience, so with their best wisdom, they take action, the emergent wisdom, they take action. And then life shows them that, you know what, that was the wisest thing you could do at that point in time, but you know what? It actually was not that wise compared to the next level of wisdom.
Wow, okay.
So this puts them in a place to be able to accept the learnings, that there's no failure, only feedback. Right? There's NLP modeling on this. No failure, only feedback. So if you want to take when you take action in the world, intention, action, consequence, and then that consequence feeds back on your next intention. So intention, action, consequence, the consequence management, right, requires higher levels of integration. So if you can come from that compassion, creativity and courage base in autonomic balance, you put and stay there, even when you in the face of feedback that says, fail, then you can go no failure, only feedback, increase requisite knowing, because now you know more, increase requisite variety, because now you have new choices, you actually increase absolute. So what the mBit model does is allows for increasing the probability that you'll help people move to the next level of the way they're valuing themselves in the world, the next station, the next way of personal evolution. So built within the mBit model, and we don't normally talk about that, and so there's a little bit of secret squirrel business, but we put a lot of time, energy and thought into how we created mBraining and created the model to allow for both relative and absolute wisdoming.
Look, it's fascinating. It is fascinating because I'm getting a lot more out of these interviews than I initially thought. Not that I didn't expect to get amazing things out of them, but this is great, Grant. And hopefully for the people listening, they're understanding, how relevant mBraining and mBit, the field of mBit is, and how it is really designed in a way that's going to support A, the coaches that have learnt it, and B, the people that are coming to the coaches to be coached.
Yeah.
Because this is what they're getting.
Yeah, then your circuits get repatterned. Yeah. And for some people, they'll never aligned in this way. They'll never had this experience of coming from the highest, expressing themselves. Their neural circuits now start to fire in this way. It creates a positive reinforcement in their life. That positive reinforcement encourages that the neurons will continue to fire together, therefore wire together. It increases the capacity for them to do this. Yeah. And people don't work, as we know, in isolation. There's resonance. So the resonance, the entrainment that occurs. So a trainer trains a coach. Coach coaches people into this way of being and doing, this ontology, and everything shifts. Because in their field, in their life, they're entraining others around them, resonant leadership. So, like the work of Professor Richard Boyatzis on resonant leadership. So, in fact, we're not just helping pick up a starfish off the beach and throw it in the water, if you remember that metaphor of, how can you possibly help them all? Well, I'll help this one through the starfish in the water so it doesn't die. we're not just throwing a starfish, we're throwing a family of starfish. We're placing people in positions of generative personal evolution that fractally resonates out. So every trainer who trains a coach trains somebody who's doing it for multiple starfish, and each starfish is a family of starfish. So in that way, I do believe we can reach a tipping point of changing consciousness within probably 1 or 2 generations. I do believe that mBit, with its potential for the technologies that we have, wonderful technologies like this, to create viral means, to share stuff out that echoes in the hearts, minds and guts of people across the planet. But coming from a business coaching methodology and leadership methodology and leadership decision making, literally we can get into the mindset very quickly, and we already have, across 20 countries in less than 2.5 years, that this thing just gets an energy of its own because people are ready for it. People are experiencing fragmentation of the world, the 21st century life, the exponential change, and they're going, there's something not right. And mBit, as somebody pointed out, and I think it was one of the UK trainings said to me, M stands for missing bit. It's like mBit pulls everything together. It's a hub on which all of these other modalities work, whether it's a neuroscience, the neuroscience of leadership. It says a lot, but it's missing something. It really, truly feels like it's missing something. And all these other methodologies, meditation, NLP, heart method, all fantastic, they're all brilliant. But as this person said to me who had trained in all of them and was a trainer in all of them, said I always felt like there was something missing. And then I read mBraining, and it was like the missing bit. And I do think that people are ready for this missing bit. And the fact that we got validating our own personal experience, intuitive experience, thousands of years of wisdom traditions and modern neuroscience, and it all comes together in a powerful, simple model that says every morning when you wake up, before you get out of bed, just ask yourself as you take a few moments, just 30 seconds to breathe in, 6 seconds out through your heart, up into your head, down your gut, and from a place of compassion, creativity and courage, ask yourself, what's the most compassionate, creative and courageous me that I could do and be today? And if you live from that, I guarantee you, every day will get better.
Beautiful.
Couldn't get any more simple than that, man. That's wisdoming.
And that is a great place to end this episode. Thanks so much everyone for watching. If you wanted to get more information on mBraining, go to mbraining.com, download some of the free interviews with a whole bunch of amazing people. The interviews with
Professor Boyatzis and David Dotlich, and it just keeps going on
amazing
and on.
People.
Alice Soroki, and more and more. I've got more coming.
And then also you can download the free MP3s that take you through some of these processes that we've discussed and spoken about.
And then Grant has beautiful dulcet tones, incredible hypnotic languaging.
And that Grant has gone through very briefly at the end of this episode. So thanks again for listening in or watching in wherever you are, and we look forward to seeing you on the next episode.
And that you increase wisdom in your life. Thank you.